Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. See, everything was fun and games for the Indiana Fever before the start of the season. Coming into the year, there was so much excitement surrounding this organization. After the way they finished last season, expectations were through the roof. The front office openly talked about wanting to build a brand that people recognized everywhere. They wanted the Indiana Fever to become the WNBA version of Apple, a household name that everybody knew regardless of whether they watched basketball or not. That sounded great on paper, but once this season actually started, everything seemed to go in the opposite direction. Instead of building momentum, the Indiana Fever found themselves dealing with controversy almost immediately. A lot of that attention has centered around head coach Stephanie White. Every single week, it seems like there is another conversation about the direction of the team, the coaching decisions, or the overall atmosphere surrounding the organization. Instead of people talking about exciting basketball, they're talking about drama, frustration, and disappointment. Now, if you've been following this team for a while, then you already know this didn't just start overnight. Last season, we were already seeing a steady decline in how fans viewed Stephanie White. The criticism wasn't coming from one game or one interview, it slowly built over time. And now it feels like those frustrations have reached another level. I'm here to tell you something that I've personally noticed traveling back and forth to Indianapolis. I've attended multiple Indiana Fever games this season, and one thing continues to stand out to me. A lot of Caitlin Clark fans simply haven't been showing up the way people expected. Whether it's because of ticket prices, frustration with coaching, or disappointment with the product on the floor, you can definitely feel a different atmosphere compared to what everyone imagined before the season began. Now, I'm not saying nobody is attending the games because that's simply not true. Plenty of fans still come out to support the team, but I have absolutely noticed fans expressing their frustration with the Indiana Fever organization. Social media has been filled with criticism. Fans have questioned coaching decisions, others have complained about ticket prices. Some believe the organization has failed to maximize the excitement surrounding Caitlin Clark. That's why I think Pacers Sports and Entertainment is facing one of the biggest decisions they've had to make in a long time. Something has to change if they want to keep the momentum surrounding this franchise moving in the right direction. Whether that's adjusting ticket prices, evaluating Stephanie White's future as head coach, or making another major organizational decision, the pressure continues to grow. As of right now, we're only about halfway through the season, but the conversations have become louder every single week. If the coaching continues to receive this much criticism and the team fails to meet expectations, people are naturally going to keep asking difficult questions. That's simply how professional sports work. Expectations were raised, and now fans expect results. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the game day atmosphere, because this is where things get really interesting. The games themselves haven't exactly lived up to all the preseason hype. Personally, I think the more Stephanie White speaks publicly, the more attention gets placed on everything surrounding the team instead of the basketball itself. Before we continue, I definitely want to give a huge shout out to Major Sports Network for capturing this footage. According to them, this video was taken about 5 minutes before tip-off. They took still pictures in real time and recorded video all the way up toward the rafters, giving everyone a complete view of the arena. If you look closely, you can even see the game clock showing exactly how much time remained before tip-off. Now, as someone who's attended 2 Indiana Fever games this season, I want to add a little context because pictures don't always tell the full story. When you look at the arena 5 minutes before tip-off, you're naturally going to notice empty seats. That's completely normal. From my own experience, a lot of those seats begin filling up right as the game starts. The lower bowl especially changes very quickly once tip-off arrives. I've watched it happen myself. Fans are still walking through the concourse, they're waiting in long concession lines, buying food and drinks. Some are visiting the team store, others are still getting through security. By the time the ball is actually tossed into the air, that middle section usually looks much different than it did 5 minutes earlier. So when people post a picture before tip-off and immediately claim nobody showed up, I think it's important to understand how these arenas actually operate. Thousands of people can still be standing in hallways, waiting in concession lines, or making their way to their seats. Now, that doesn't mean every section fills up equally. The upper level is a different story. From what I've personally seen, those seats usually remain much more scattered throughout the game. Once you're talking about climbing multiple flights of stairs, riding escalators, or taking elevators all the way to the top, plenty of fans simply stay where they are once they arrive. But the middle, lower sections are usually much fuller after tip-off than they appear in those early pictures. That's why I always tell people to be careful about making conclusions based on one snapshot taken before the game actually begins. The first several rows may still have empty seats depending on the night, but the middle sections generally fill in much better once the game gets underway. Even with that added context, though, I still believe attendance has become an important conversation for the Indiana Fever organization. Expectations were incredibly high entering this season, and naturally, everyone expected sold-out crowds and nonstop excitement surrounding Caitlin Clark. Then you hear the arena announcer saying, "We're on national TV, we're on CBS, and that means we need you to make some noise." Those moments stand out because they remind everyone just how much national attention this team continues to receive. Now, as the camera continued moving around the arena, you could still see certain sections remaining empty while others slowly filled in. There were only a couple of minutes remaining before tip-off, and many fans were still making their way inside. Again, the lower sections eventually looked much stronger, but the upper sections remained noticeably lighter throughout the evening. Now, with all of that being said, another interesting storyline is beginning. Former Indiana Fever player Sydney Colson is making her network debut, and she's now joining ESPN coverage alongside Chiney Agwamke. Naturally, one of the biggest topics they're discussing is Caitlin Clark and everything surrounding the Indiana Fever this season. So let's hear what Sydney Colson had to say about Caitlin Clark alongside Chiney Agwamke on ESPN. Let's roll it.
To me, overall, officiating has been a universal issue this year. And that's not the goal of any league, but this is the reality. And when you think about the imperative to call more fouls, we're seeing the highest scoring season ever in WNBA history. That's largely because they're calling more fouls, right? Games are no longer 2 hours, they're 2.5 hours long. So you're seeing that there's an imperative to call more fouls, but there's still a lack of situational awareness or a lack of control of the game by the refs. You can call fouls, but is it dictating how one game is played from the other? Because you can see one game where one is super physical and one where people are dropping 50. There's been a lack of consistency, and this creates a problem in magnifier matchups. And this is a magnifier matchup when you look back at it. Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin Clark, both dominant players, but Alyssa plays on the edge. I know her. And Caitlin sometimes embellishes at times in certain instances. And so when you have a scrum, like you said, there needs to be a hyper-vigilance, but also this created a position where the league is now forced to be reactive. And instead of having a control of not just calling fouls, now the league is reacting and doing something that it rarely does on a non-call and instituting a suspension. And to me, that was unique. But I'll lastly say this, because that largely happened because of the optics. In game flow, if you're watching in game speed, I was watching in game speed, I didn't really notice too much because people hit the ground all the time. But then when narratives are created based off of a freeze frame, that can create a huge problem. And I do think that the league, the league was reacting to the optics of that image.
Which is what Tibbetts was saying, right?
Like if you walk by me and I'm doing this, but then if you play it faster and you see I was actually doing this, to move my nose, it looked different in freeze frame.
But the bigger picture issue here is that, like, in that situation, if you're watching it in real time, both players who are known to make their issues known got up and kept going.
That's
why I have a problem, because if you're looking at the reaction even to this day, it breaks my heart, because players, even in Alyssa Thomas's caliber, whether you think she did it intentionally or not, she's dealing with a heightened level of vitriol right now based off of what this situation created, and that doesn't sit well with me. If the league could really handle this better in real time and figuring out how we want more points, we want more fouls, but how do we keep an eye on these specific matchups so we can avoid the narratives getting out of our control? I hope that happens moving forward in the future.
They just justified that assault, and that's exactly why so many fans are upset. Sydney Colson, this is not a good look. You were former teammates with Caitlin Clark. You were in Indiana, and you witnessed the physical play and the conversations surrounding those incidents. So when you ask, will the camera make it look like something different? That's not the point. If the action was wrong, then just say it was wrong. That's all people are asking for. Guys, get down in the comments section and let me know your thoughts. Keep those bells on, like, share, and subscribe.